Hello, everyone. Welcome to this live about narcissists and avoidance. For this conversation, I'll be joined by my colleague Adriana to talk all things narcissism and narcissists versus avoidance who have avoidant attachment. For this conversation, we will be doing a big, fun conversation about what a narcissist is versus what an avoidant is, where there might be overlap with narcissism, and so on. And we will maybe take time to answer some questions that we get along the journey. But other than that, feel free, as always, to contribute to this conversation as we get this underway. I'm just waiting for Adriana to join, but I guess while she's slowly coming on, I will just say, oh, here she is. This live this morning, so super excited to have this conversation. Hopefully Instagram lets me. Yeah, here we go.
Hey.
Hello.
Good to see you.
Likewise, it feels like ages since we had a conversation.
It has been. Yeah. I don't even remember when it was, so you know that it was a long time ago.
We might as well just pretend we have amnesia and then
Yeah.
just do the whole thing again.
Exactly. No one's going to remember whatever we talked about anyways, so.
Exactly.
Because I don't even remember.
I'm just going to be like, well, you're an expert in narcissists. I'm an expert in avoidance. I guess we'll start with that.
Perfect.
So would you like to remind everyone who you are and what you do?
Sure. So, hi everyone. My name's Adriana. I'm a certified trauma-informed life coach based out of Toronto, Canada, and I help empower survivors of narcissistic abuse to heal, set boundaries, live life on their own terms. I guess you could say I specialize in adult children of narcissists. I'm a fellow survivor of narcissistic abuse myself. I was raised by a narcissistic mother, had chronic pain that brought me to my healing journey. I dated narcissists too, so I just use everything that I learned on my journey to help other people. In a nutshell.
That was such a great summary. So my name is Ken. I'm no stranger to narcissism and narcissists, but I'm more focused as a counselor on helping people heal from avoidant attachers who have behavior that can sometimes look and feel like narcissism, especially when they break up with you. But at the end of the day, they both can suck. They can both be great at moments. It can be very confusing, it can be very discombobulating. But I figure it'd be good to talk about this because often I feel like it's better to have this conversation with someone who specializes in this sort of stuff. So with that all out of the way, Adriana, for everyone here, do you want to give a discussion or a description of like what a narcissist is versus what it is not?
Sure. So, people say like narcissist versus asshole. I mean, you kind of have to be a bit of a narcissist to be an asshole,
Yeah.
but yeah. But at least like assholes, like they're assholes, and that would be more of like an overt narcissist where it's like obvious, whereas like other narcissists, like the covert umbrella of narcs, like you don't know that they're narcissists, like you just have no idea. They come off like really nice a lot of the time. They'll love bomb you. If it's a relationship, like they'll do like a grand gesture like at the beginning of the relationship. They'll pretend that you're soulmates, it's love at first sight, it'll move like a really fast moving sort of relationship kind of thing. And with parents, it's kind of different because like they don't need to love bomb you because you're there, like you just exist. You don't really get to,
So true.
like you don't really get to choose your parents. You're either born to them or adopted to them or however it is that you've come to be. So they don't need to go through anything to really hook you in because like the trust is automatic because that's just how that works. And so there's a very obvious cycle with a narcissist of love, bomb, devalue, discard. Most of the time it repeats itself. Sometimes it's like you go through one cycle with them and that's it. But the majority of the times it's like it repeats itself over and over and over again. And it's just like love bombing is like anything you want to hear. And basically whatever you want to hear, whatever it is that's going to gain your trust by this person. And then as soon as they're satisfied that they've gained your trust, they start devaluing you. So that's when like the insults start to roll in. They start, chipping away at your confidence, undermining you, picking random fights with you. Stuff stops making sense. They start to contradict a lot of the things that they were saying during the love bombing phase. And so, like maybe you don't have anything in common anymore. And it's just things, this is when things really get weird. And then there's the discard stage where they just sort of throw you in the garbage as if you never existed, like you're dead to them kind of thing. And it can be subtle sometimes. It can be just like, they stop talking to you for the rest of the night, and then the next morning they act as if nothing ever happened because then they're starting the love bombing phase all over again. And basically rinse and repeat. It's just love bomb, devalue, discard, love bomb, devalue, discard over and over and over again. So that's really the best way to know if you are dealing with a narcissist. And sometimes they don't discard, sometimes it just waffles between love bomb, devalue. And there's not necessarily a discard, but sometimes, again, like that discard can be very subtle. So I hope that kind of explains it.
I thought that was brilliant. I think one thing I'd add to that too is to say that I think that with narcissism, it's very pattern orientated, meaning it's very, like, I think when you see it and you're like, birds fly, fish swim, narcissist, love bomb, devalue, and discard, I have found from working with my clients, those who have gone through a narcissistic relationship, that once they could see it and they weren't as attached, it became almost quite easy over time to disconnect from it, to be like, oh, this is just the way it is. It's got nothing to do with me. It's just the way that this person operates. And sure, they can mourn their narcissistic partner or parent or friend, but I think that pattern of love bomb, devalue, discard is so pronounced that it's very easy to identify if that narcissistic individual is, displaying those patterns quite pronounced over time too. And I definitely noticed there are a lot of narcissists who do waffle on between the love bomb and devalue phase without ever getting to a true discard. And one thing I've also noticed is that these relationships tend to last a bloody long time for the most part, in that they are quite protracted. And I've seen how there's these, huge moments of the narcissist needing excessive validation from the person that they're with. And then almost like when they get it, that's when things start to switch around and they start to feel like, yeah, I don't need this person anymore. And it sort of almost feels like a vampire. They just come in, suck the blood out of the relationship, and then just are looming around the corpse like a crow, pecking at it, but they could leave at any time.
Totally. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And then, yeah, with narcissists as well, like they need supply from other people. So that's basically what it's always going to be about and all it ever will be about with them. So getting that validation, it's basically your attention. That's what supply is. So whether it's
Yeah.
praise, validation, attention, getting roped into fights with them, you having an emotional reaction, money, resources, like anything that you can do that is energy that is given towards them is what they're after. And that's all it's ever going to be about. So, yeah.
Yeah. And also, I've noticed too, there is a high tendency to be very delusional in their thinking, which is why they're very good at gaslighting, because they just project a lot of their own delusional stuff onto people that they're with. And they have a lot of denial over what they're experiencing. Like, they don't want to admit that they have a problem. Even if they know they have a problem, they will often project that onto other people because it's so much easier to throw it onto the other person and make them feel like a piece of shit than to ever sit with it and go, maybe there's something I need to do about this.
Right. Exactly. Like they will never take accountability. If they do, it's to manipulate you. Like it's just another form of love bombing because they know that that's what you want to hear in order to continue having a conversation with you, kind of thing. But they'll never genuinely want to change or actually take accountability or, care about how you're feeling, because as long as how you're feeling is fueling them with the supply that they feel entitled to, that's all they care about.
Yep. I noticed someone here said, so how do you tell them to stop the cycle? And I almost don't want to answer this question because I feel like I'd be mean if I answered it. So I'm going to throw this to you because I feel like you'll do it
Yeah.
better than me.
Awesome. I think I'm having like a problem on my end, like technology wise, because I am not seeing any comments at all.
Uh,
So yeah, I literally cannot see anything, and I think like the number of viewers froze for me. I don't know if I should leave and come back because I'm
I
not
guess
like, does it
you can,
matter?
you can if you want, or if you'd like, we can just run
Yeah, we
with it
can
like
just
we always do.
run with it, and then I'll just, yeah, like you let me know what questions you want answered because I literally cannot see anything
Okay.
on my end. It's so weird.
All right. Well, I will do the honors of doing Q&A for
Perfect.
you. So
Okay.
Cactus Toast asks, actually, it's a good question. So what do you say to presumably a narcissist to stop the cycle?
Nothing.
That's exactly
Absolutely
what.
nothing. Yeah, like literally nothing. Because anything you say to them is manipulate, like they're going to use it as a weapon against you. Like they want you to, every word you give to a narcissist, they use that as a weapon and throw it back in your face. Less is more with narcissists. So the more you try to actually talk to them and like prove your point and tell them how what they're doing is hurting you and all that kind of stuff, that is actually supply for them. They're getting fueled by that. They're enjoying that. They're getting a little kick out of it. And they're going to use that against you. So the best way that you can stop that cycle from happening is by not participating in it. Do not give them any ounce of attention. Don't give them any supply. If you're in a situation where like you can't necessarily completely cut off contact right away, like it is what it is, it happens. They make it very difficult for people to leave. So, you might be financially enmeshed with them. You might share a child with them. You might, be under the same roof as them for whatever reason. And so what you're going to want to use is the gray rock method in that case, where you just become as boring as a gray rock. Yes, overnight, you became the most boring human being of all time on the planet. They're going to probably say, like, oh, what's up with your new attitude? Or I'm worried about you. Are you okay? Again, this is just them trying to instigate a reaction and a response out of you. So you have to do your best to like ignore all of the noise they're making. Imagine they're just like a barking dog trying to get your attention. And I'm I'm literally in the midst of training my puppy Frankie. So like it's so connected. Like you got to look at it like it's dog training in a way where like they just need to bark it out. They're just going to be super angry. Let them be a rain cloud of misery on their miserable corner of the universe while you focus on yourself and your healing journey, because the more that you pay attention to them or try to make them stop doing what they're doing, the more that's going to satisfy their ego, because that confirms to them that, oh, the way I'm treating this person is hurting them. Wonderful. Like they love it. They get off on it. And then that encourages them to do it more. So when you take that away, yes, they might try harder to instigate a reaction from you, but eventually they will be discouraged because you're just going to be so boring. You're not going to be any fun for them.
Yeah, I completely agree. I have worked now with a few people who are clearly dating a narcissist. And, it's interesting because I've seen how, I will say, as someone who's partaken in this experience, meaning like I've watched my clients go through it, I can see how tempting it is to continue trying to go back, to prove yourself, to win love from this person, and most of all, to try and validate your truth to someone who is living in denial. They do not want to accept reality most of the time. They do not want to take any form of accountability or responsibility. And I have seen how, to use a really good phrase by Dr. Ramani, they will take your tears and melt them into bullets and fire them right back at you.
I like that.
It is just so tragic to see how someone who has maybe had a history of invalidation is going to a narcissistic partner being like, I wasn't like that. I can show plenty of evidence through these phone calls, these text messages, these photos, how I was behaving, and just watch as they come up with all manner of gaslighty tactics to throw it back at you to make it seem like you're the crazy person in this entire experience. And it's re-traumatizing over and over again. I get people want to obviously have a say in who they are, their acceptance of who they are and their reality. Like, that's important. We need to have a good understanding of who we are and also to accept what we do, what we're capable of, our flaws, our strengths. That's all part of our development of a healthy self-esteem. But going back to them is like going to get yourself raked over the coals. It is just absolute torture over and over again. But one thing I will say as a clinician is sometimes people almost need to have that experience enough times to get to a point where they realize nothing's going to change, and more importantly, they don't want to be hurt by this over and over again. So I think one sign I know from my clients who go through this, that I can tell that they're starting to not care as much, is when they become kind of bored to the narcissist and they start to realize this person's kind of a joke. Like, I can kind of see what they're doing now and I'm just kind of not engaging with this as much. And they get to a point of absolute burnout with the person. They're just like, fuck this, I don't want to engage. And honestly, it's a happy day for myself and the client, because often they're just like, I don't need to reply to this anymore. I can see that it's them, it's not me. So it's a wonderful day when people get to that place. it's my hope that people don't have to get to that, have to wait till they're exhausted with someone to leave
Hmm.
in the future.
Yeah. Exactly. It's like you have to realize you have nothing to prove to this person. They want you to believe that you have something to prove because they're just feeding off of that reaction. And they just love seeing you running around like a headless chicken trying to prove yourself and, making you believe that like you actually do have something to prove yourself. And like, who the fuck are they? They're just another person. Like, they're nobody at the end of the day, and they are a joke. And so, just to sort of piggyback off of what you were saying, like, a lot of people, yeah, they do have to go through that cycle over and over again, but we're all gonna die one day, guys.
True.
you know, like just to be a little morbid. But you don't know what tomorrow brings. So it's like you do not want to waste your time. Like you have a limited amount of time on this planet. So you have to get to that point where you realize, like, is this worth my time? It's not. It's absolutely not. You're more like it's more worthwhile for you to realize that like this is so not worth it. This is a waste of my time because nobody has ever like all the people that I work with, like for the most part, they're done with the narcissist kind of thing. I have not had one client who was like, damn, I wish I tried like another 10 cycles and wasted more of my time trying to prove myself to this person. If anything, they're like, shit, I wish I just had someone shake me and say, like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, just stop wasting your time with this person, whether it's a family member, a parent, a significant other. It's like a lot of them just wish like they knew sooner or they had stopped trying sooner because like their gut was saying something. So if your gut is saying something right now, listen to it. The narcissist does not want you to listen to it because they want you to listen to them because they want control over you.
100%. They speak through ego, through shame, through fear, through anxiety. They do not speak from a place of intuition. And even if sometimes they do say something that's quote unquote valid, you've got to remember too, do you want to take the commentary of someone who is chronically hurting you? Like, I mean, sure, maybe you had some good times with this person, but a good few months or even years does not mean you should have to put up with this kind of abuse from someone. And I know it's a bitter pill for some people to swallow because they do obviously want to maintain a relationship with these people. And look, on one hand, I completely get it. I've been in this situation myself with people in my life like that too. And I have to say the painful pill that I've had to swallow over time is, you know, I personally would say that over time you realize that you're worth more than this, and you actually, and being constantly invalidated and also having projection and, any form of reality bending tactics used against you to deny you of your lived experience, it gets to a point where it hurts more than you can put up with, and you're just like, I can't do this anymore. It's not worth my sanity going through this. So I think, yeah, overall, I think we could both agree that being with a narcissist is, well, we know it has its highs, but it's also torture.
Mhm. Absolutely. It is like the worst torture that you could go through ever. And it's just like it's not worth it. It's literally not worth it. Like anyone who's invalidating your experience, anyone who's gaslighting you, telling you that like, you don't have the right to react like any normal human being would to the abuse that they're putting you through, like they are not worth one more second of your time. And that's kind of what like healing kind of helps you with, to realize that like you're a valuable person and your time is so valuable, and time is like the only resource that we can never replenish because
Yep.
once it's gone, it's gone. And so, you have to really get to a place where you're valuing your time and you're valuing how you spend your time, and realizing that spending your time with this person is just, it's not it.
Yep. And I'd also add to that too by saying that you've got to be really careful of being in a relationship with these people for a long time, because the somatic damage that can happen over time is
Oh yeah.
brutal. Like
Yeah.
people, have really nasty physiological symptoms come up out of nowhere during this period. Like, yeah, same, like IBS, I've forgotten like some of the technical terms of some of the experiences you've had, but it's just one of those things where physiological pain is quite prominent throughout this period. Something that I not so jokingly commented on one of your posts recently when you were talking about how gaslighting makes you feel like you're going crazy. Many people think they have early onset, like dementia when they're in these experiences
I was
because
Googling it in my 20s if I had dementia because my mother was gaslighting me so much. It was crazy.
you must have been so sensitive. There must be something wrong with
Of
you.
course.
You clearly need to go speak to a therapist to sort your stuff out. Yeah, we know the
Yeah.
lines.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things where the experience of being in that environment is absolute torture. And one thing I've noticed is there are two extreme reactions off the back of getting out with a narcissist. Usually there's, if they've discarded you, usually I feel like a lot of people are, or even if you've left them, a lot of people are often very, very, upset, hurt, crying a lot, really, really deeply in a lot of pain. And it takes a while to heal from. Or the other extreme experience is relief, where they're like, thank
Yep.
fuck, I'm out of that experience. So it is like quitting like pretty bad drugs, but it's not quite the same as when you're dating someone with avoidant attachment.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it can go either way when you leave a narcissist or end a relationship with one or go no contact. It's either going to be extreme grief, and it's like grief to the point where it feels like somebody died. And it's like you have to recognize that you are actually grieving the loss of who you thought this person was, who they had presented themselves to you as in those love bombing stages to hook you in, because that's a fake person. And so it's important to sit with that grief, be with it, because then it's not going to go anywhere if you don't do that. And yeah, then there's the other side of the coin where it's just like absolute relief, like, fuck this. I never want to do that again. Let me just go on my healing journey and never ever look back because I'm never doing that ever again. And yeah, what's tell us about avoidance and what that's all about because I am not an expert in that whatsoever. I mean, through learning from you, I've learned quite a bit, but I'm gonna shut up. I'm gonna stop talking.
Well, all I'll say is there are moments of similarities that I'll talk about down the line, but let's talk about the garden avoidant experience because it's a very different kind of case. If you're dealing with someone who's light on the narcissistic traits, but someone who's still severely avoidant, we're talking about someone who has avoidant attachment. So this is someone who has what we call a conscious fear of intimacy, commitment, and a subconscious fear of abandonment. So what this looks like is this is someone where I see a lot of survivors of narcissistic abuse get with these people almost straight off the back of it, and they think they found their soulmate. Hell, you don't even need to have been with a narcissist to get with someone like this. These people are everywhere. These individuals are some of the most lovely, charming, bubbly, funny, gregarious, amazing, debonair individuals you will meet. Like they are so full on, when you're dating them, it is just like chemistry to the nines, but it feels genuine because for the most part, it is. They're really into you. They're really excited to see you and often also very good at going along with whatever you want and to a point where you almost feel like you're sort of guiding things with them. You feel like this is someone who you've never felt as safe with. You feel so at peace with them. And it's very common for people, including myself, to say, I feel like I've known you for a very long time. And, it's a bit strange that, they don't seem to want to open up much about their past or they'll talk about their exes and say, oh, yeah, we just had compatibility issues. Because, I mean, on paper, that sounds like a reasonable excuse to say. And they may even say things to you like, I have never felt this loved like I have with you. You're absolutely, the person I want to be with, who I want to have my children with. And then tomorrow they break up with you. And it comes out of nowhere. Often what happens is they might sit you on the couch and say, I love you, babe. And I also need to let you know that I just don't see you in my future. You see, I think that I love you, but you're not my soulmate. I think that if I'm feeling this way, then clearly we're not meant to be together. I think that, I can't give you what you're looking for. And for the person who's receiving this, it feels devastating because they're like, what the actual fuck? Like, where did this come from? Why is this person doing this to me? And so if people have the knowledge of narcissistic patterns of behavior, like your love bomb, devalue, discard, it's like the devalue and discard just happened in a second. It's like, because it
Yeah.
is truly a discard. It's like, what? Like, where did this come from? And they may say bonkers things like, Adriana, you like hiking, but I don't like hiking. How can we possibly make a life together? You want kids, but I don't want kids. And you might be like, but didn't you say you wanted kids? And then the avoidance like, no, I don't ever want kids. I think that, clearly we were just infatuated with one another. This wasn't real love. And so they make all these stupid rationalizations, which are, I'm going to be honest, they sound somewhat logical at the time, but when you think about it, you're like, what?
Yeah. It sounds
Basically,
like gaslighting.
it is, to be honest, it is. It
Yeah.
is a form of gaslighting, because what often is happening for these people is they're so in their head, masking a lot of their own anxiety and insecurities, that what's actually happening is you're hearing a lot of their running thoughts play out, where they're just like, what they're saying essentially is, I am so scared to be in a relationship because I worry that if we get closer, you're going to think that I'm a piece of shit and I'm not going to be good enough for you. And I'm so scared you're going to reject me that you're better off without me. And so what that then translates to is all these other things where they're trying to act like the bigger person, the person who's kindly letting you down, because they think that if by doing this, you'll meet someone so much better than them. And they truly believe it. They truly believe that you are much better than them and that you deserve someone better. But a lot of this stuff is anxiety talk. So you're hearing all of this stuff play out and you're not really understanding it, because you're like, where is this coming from? I never heard a peep of this. Why are you saying this to me? And it becomes really hard to deal with that, because what was once this soulmate experience is now over. And these people have a nasty habit of stalking your socials, rebounding into a new situationship or relationship within weeks sometimes, even if they said to you they were going to commit to a relationship with you, or even if they'd said, I'm not going to pursue anyone off the back of this, I really need time to heal, I need to go to therapy, they won't usually do it. And so they often avoid taking any accountability or responsibility for themselves off the back of this particular period. They'll jump in to new relationships straight away. Hell, they may even marry this person. But typically what I find is they get with what I call wallflower people, meaning people who don't have a lot of emotional expressiveness, people who don't usually have a lot of depth, or they get with someone very similar and the cycle will happen again, or they get with a narcissist who replays the same events that they grew up with in childhood. So usually these experiences have a lot of similarities to the lay of the land of a narcissist,
Yeah.
without the maliciousness that you would normally feel with a narcissist.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Because everything you're saying, I'm like, this is narcissists. But when you take the maliciousness piece out of it, because they are malicious narcissists, and then I guess avoidants are not, they just genuinely feel so shitty about themselves.
Yes,
yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
That makes sense.
And it is right to sort of on one hand, just to delineate, whilst they're not true narcissists, there is patterns of narcissism that play throughout this. The more egregious example of this would be, sometimes when these people are, feeling really shitty about themselves because they're getting, they're feeling too vulnerable to someone, oh yeah, they will gaslight, they will project, they will blame shift, they will use spiritual bypassing and say things like, oh, we just had a fleeting romantic experience that was simply not meant to be, to deny any accountability of the fact that this person was genuinely into you. So yeah, it absolutely glides into narcissism from time to time.
So can an avoidant also be a narcissist?
Yes. So to clarify, a lot of narcissists can have avoidant attachment. Mm-hmm. Many avoidants can have strong narcissistic tendencies and traits without having enough to the point where it's diagnosable as NPD.
Interesting. So how would you tell someone to deal with an avoidant, or is the best bet to just fucking run?
Well,
get them to seek therapy and then you fucking run. I don't know.
Okay, here's what I'd say, because this is different from someone who's a narcissist.
Right.
An avoidant can change, but their chances of change are so low, especially in the beginning if they're starting therapy for the first time. It's going to take on average about 5 years for these people to heal from their stuff, because they've entrenched so much of this stuff. I'd say to the lay person who's going through this, a lot of them still want to make this work. They still want to get their ex back, and sometimes these avoidants will come back like a narcissist and go through the whole phase, and it's like hoovering. They'll go through the same phase and they will apologize because they recognize they genuinely have done something wrong. But during this particular phase, I want to make it very clear, there are certain conditions if you want to accept this person back in your life, because unlike a narc, it's not quite as black and white as that. In this case, it's more like, if this person recognizes what they've done and also can take ownership of their triggers, you need to take it so slowly. Do the whole thing so differently. Start out as friends. Go to couples counseling together to work on this shit, because if they haven't worked through that, from what I've heard from clients who've gone through this, the second time round when they broke up abruptly was way worse because they felt like their relationship was, held hostage by this person's triggers. So
Yeah.
why would you want to be in a relationship, to excuse this phrase, with an emotional
Yeah.
terrorist? Why would you want to be with someone who's holding your relationship hostage because of their fears? I totally understand where they're coming from. But I think the thing we have to understand is some of these avoidant attachers are going to show us so much potential, yet lack the capability to deliver on it. So it really becomes a case of it is what it is. And I have to say, it is one of the most heartbreaking experiences to go through because you can see this person is just fighting themselves. On one hand, they want to show up and be with you, they just don't know how to do it. So I'd say for most people, they will have to sit with the bit of truth, which is these people are not going to end up being their partner, and they're going to have to, slowly but surely grieve this experience, mourn this person, and eventually walk, because that's just usually how it goes. Sure, I often say to these people, like I say to a lot of my clients, if you want to reach out to your avoidant partner, go ahead. They're not a narc. They're not going to bite back at you. And if they do, that says a lot more about them than it does about
Yeah.
you. But to be completely honest, it is what it is. And I'm open to people exploring the possibilities when they're with me, but I don't try and act like a dating coach being like, here's how to get your avoidant ex back, because I refuse to do that.
Mhm.
I think it's just one of those things where it's going to be, it's purely tragedy. Like, it's just tragedy. That's all it is.
No, for sure. And so when you say it takes 5 years, if an avoidant decides that they're gonna go to therapy, it takes 5 years for them to sort of overcome this attachment. And like, does that mean they eventually develop secure attachment in 5 years? And are
That's
we
the
talking 5 years weekly therapy? Like, how does it work?
I when I said 5 years, I should say like that was sort of like an average depending from person to
Mm,
person. Because I mean, for instance, you and I, from the sounds of it, like I know you said you reckon you had more of a disorganized attachment
mhm.
before you got with your partner. You know, I mean, I know for me, I've definitely leaned more anxious than avoidant, but I'd say some of us will be able to work through a lot of this stuff, either by ourselves or with a clinician. But I have to say, avoidants really need a lot of hard somatic therapy. They really need like weekly therapy. And like I've got avoidant clients, and I got to tell you, love working with them, but it's slow. It's like a snail in Antarctica, and that's the pace it needs to be for most part. Because if not, they'll turn into a cheetah and run. So you really need to just like take your time with them. And often they need to also have moments where when you can almost see that they're about to bolt from therapy, you need to like challenge that urge of theirs.
Mhm.
So it's labored. And sometimes they need to use like other modalities like EMDR. They need to talk to someone who's trained in internal family systems therapy. The point is, it's quite integrated, it's quite complex, and it's a long journey, and it's rewarding. Like, it's beautifully rewarding to see them open up. But I gotta tell you, like, they're a different person when they overcome a lot of this stuff, and so will you. You may realize that maybe for both of you, maybe you both will actually realize you're better suited for each other now, or you won't. But it's that thing which is like, it kind of goes back to what you were saying too, which is, why wait?
Yeah, totally. I forgot what I was gonna say. It was like on the tip of my brain, and like now it's just gone.
Oh, it'll come back to you.
Oh well, yeah. If I blurt it out, then that's when it'll come back. I'll just, it came back. But
I was going to say, though, just like to round this piece out, I would say that, for people who have dated narcissists and then are now dating or have dated just an avoidant, I would say don't lose heart, because these people have shown you what you deserve in a relationship. Because if what you had previously was a narcissist, they will only teach you, pain and misery. But with an avoidant, they'll usually treat you way better than you've ever been treated before. So please let that be the baseline for any future relationships that you have going forward. Now, with that all being said, I was going to say, we have a load of questions and statements here. I was going to say, do you want me to throw them out to you and we can just start going back and forth through some of these?
sure, I remembered what I was gonna say though.
Go for it.
I think it's more just like an advice thing for people, in my opinion. Take it or leave it. I can't see any comments, so I don't know. I don't know like how people are gonna take this. But the avoidance an adult too, right? Like, because
Yes.
I always tell people like the narcissist is an adult. Because people always ask me like, is the narcissist going to change? And no, absolutely fucking not. They are not going to change. They might become self-aware if they're like forced to go to therapy because it's like legally mandated for some reason. But like narcissists don't get diagnosed, they don't go to therapy, they don't think anything's wrong with them. They think they'll tell you that you're the one who needs to go to therapy, and then you do end up going to therapy, and it doesn't work because there's actually nothing fucking wrong with you. And so for whether it's an avoidant or a narcissist or whoever, just someone that like you're trying so hard to make things work with, you have to understand that the other person's an adult. They need to take accountability for themselves and they need to like figure out the consequences of their behavior. And so if the consequences for an avoidant is that you left because you've realized that like your time is valuable and you want to prioritize your life over this other person, then and if that's what sets them off to go talk to a therapist and actually do it weekly and really work on themselves without acting on that urge to run away from it all, then great. And then maybe in the future you come back together, whatever, but at least you didn't waste your time during that time. Um, you know,
Not
but
worth.
like with a narcissist, like it's completely hopeless. So it's just like, they're gonna do everything they can to try to trap you. So like you want to just get the fuck out as soon as possible and like never look back. Whereas I guess with an avoidant, like they're still an adult. They're still accountable for themselves. They need to figure their shit out for themselves. And like you can only do so much. It's above your pay grade.
Completely agree. I completely agree. I noticed one question here, which I'm going to answer, and then I'll quickly get into the Q&A of stuff. And by the way, to everyone who's commenting on this, I know Adriana can't see
I
this.
can't see anything.
We're at a record of 120 people watching this.
What? It
And,
says it's froze at 76. I've never had that many people on a live when I go by myself. What the fuck?
well, finally, I guess after all these lives together, we
Wow.
finally managed to break a
We broke
record.
the algorithm.
We broke the
Cool.
algorithm. I
Hi,
mean, I guess
everyone.
people
I
want
can't see you, but hi.
to.
Holy shit.
I just want to say to everyone watching this, firstly, big thank you. Secondly, just for making it easy on myself as I'm going through these, can you put all of your questions in the question mark box down below at the bottom of the chat? Because that way I can just triage it all. And I will, if that's completely done and dusted, go through some of the comments. I just ask if there's please try your best not to do trauma dumping in the chat. I respect people who do it. I completely get it. But it's a bit hard for us to sort of like act as coach and counselor in those kind of dynamics because it's not really a question. It's more of like, here's my history. And it's like, we don't have the context to understand the full history of that sort of stuff too. So I'd say save that for a paid session. Please be mindful of how this space is used. Anyways, with those boundaries out of the way, just wanted to answer this one. Becky asks, do avoidants ever realize they loved you and that's why they pushed you away? Yes and no. So here's the thing to understand. A lot of the time they often realize that they have, big dreams with you. They want to be with you. They absolutely want to, commit to you. But when they shut down, I can tell you now, their biggest priority at that point in time is, I want to get out of here ASAP. Where's the door? So they will move heaven and earth to get away from you. And I can assure you that down the line, they will often come to grips with the fact that they made a huge mistake and they can see that they've, done something out of a place of fear. But whether they act on that and then decide, okay, I need to actually work through this is an entirely different matter. Classic example of this sort of stuff is you date someone for a while where everything was beautiful, the avoidant breaks up with you abruptly, and then they reach out to you in a few years and go, hey, what's up? Like a fuckboy.
Hmm.
That's their way of trying to test the waters to see if they can still connect with you because they're so ashamed of what they've done and are also worried of any potential backlash they're about to receive, understandably so, because that's their shy way of trying to connect with you. Now, here's the rub. If you try and confront them about whether they have feelings for you, some of them they might say, yes, I absolutely did have feelings for you. And they may act like they're completely disconnected and detached. And in those moments, usually they have. Because a lot of that detachment is not true detachment. What they're often doing is suppressing and compartmentalizing a lot of their stuff. We have to remember, fear as a biological response overrides a lot of the good stuff that we're experiencing in life. So if they're clouded by a lot of anxiety, they're not going to be feeling much fondness for you. So please bear in mind that if if you're talking to them like a few months after the fact and they're like, yeah, I did have feelings for you, as if they've suddenly gotten over you, that's not a full picture of what's going on, but it is not an indicator that you need to still try and chase them to win their love back again. That's something they will have to do on their own as you distance yourself from them. And that is the only bit of advice I will give on that circumstance. Anyways, I'm going to take a big breather and throw questions to you because I feel like, you know, you're going to have lots of stuff to talk about with regards to the good old narcissistic relationship sort of stuff. So let's dive straight in. So, here's one for you, Adriana. How do you break a trauma bond?
That's a very, very loaded question.
Yeah,
But basically, by healing is going to be how you're going to break a trauma bond. So just like feeling your emotions, processing your emotions, understanding your emotions. And it's not like an overnight thing, right? So you have to, first of all, the fact that you can even identify that there's a trauma bond there, like great, awesome. And just working through those emotions that are there. So what is it about this person that is making you believe that, even though they've abused you, why are you putting them on a pedestal kind of thing? So like reflecting on stuff like that, really becoming aware of yourself and your emotions and, just working at that day by day, journaling about it every day. Like I'm going to be talking about journaling a lot because that's like literally the cure for everything. It's free. All you have to do is get a pen and a piece of paper, vomit everything on your brain onto that paper, all about, the trauma bond that you're feeling with that person and, why you feel that you need to like protect them or, continue being with them or see them in such a positive light after all the horrible things that they've done to you. And you can even, something else that you could do as well is just like make a list of all the terrible things and all the abusive things that they've done to you and keep that somewhere that only you can see. And then anytime you feel those warm fuzzies coming back towards that person, bust out the list and read it and remind yourself, like, these are just my emotions. Feelings are not facts. Thoughts are not real. And I've got the proof and the reality and everything that I've been through with this person on this piece of paper right here. And now I remember that like this is absolutely not fucking worth it. So, that's my 30 seconds on how to do it, but it's going to take you longer than that to actually implement it.
Yeah, I would add to what you said, which I thought was brilliant, and that's what I advise my clients, is if you're mourning that person and you're also, longing for them, you can also do what I call a funeral letter, where you write out as if this person has died. You can write out the version of them that you loved. If it was a narcissist, sure, they showed you a glimmer of something that you liked. Take that, write about it. That person that they put on a show for you was someone who you thought was real. Talk about how you miss that individual and write about it, because that's really healthy to do. Because once you process that, you'll be like, oh, yeah, that's right. If I'm dealing with this individual, whether they be narcissistic or avoidant, doesn't really matter. You got to remember, too, that, the fact is one does not come without the other, meaning you might have had a great moment with this person, but you got to remember that all their other shit comes with it. So that's another way to do it. Another question here, which is, again, another big question, how to know that the person you are interacting with is manipulating you?
If things are not making sense, if you're confused, that is the easiest way to know if you're being manipulated. If you are even slightly confused when you're interacting with this person, that is a very, very huge red flag that you are being manipulated. It doesn't mean that you're stupid or that you're misunderstanding things or, whatever. It literally means this person is confusing you because narcissists love to confuse people because confused people are easier to control. So that would be like just the easiest way to figure out if you are being manipulated, if things are just not making sense.
Yeah, fully agreed. Also, for people who are looking at the questions box and are wondering why there are so many quote unquote questions from the stories, I think, Adriana, you'll appreciate this. I'm not sure if you saw it. I posted a question on my stories where I was like, hey, what are some of the invalidating comments people have said to you off the back of a breakup with an avoidant, which could also be for a narcissist as well, because it's pretty similar. And I have like hundreds of responses in the stories.
I was
So
actually able to see that. Like I can actually click on the question thing, but I just kept seeing like replied to stories and I'm like, I don't know if I'm supposed to be seeing this.
you can. And I mean, it's really just comment. Basically, okay. For anyone who's looking at this and is wondering why the fuck are there so many questions here and from the stories, just to explain, I basically was asking people what crappy things they've been told about their breakup situations. So I guess this is from the words of people who are emotionally immature, possibly either narcissistic or avoidant. So take it, with a grain of salt, and please don't just try and not think of that. That will be unpacked in a future live next week. So we'll get back into it. Okay. Question: what is the main difference between a narcissist and avoidant? Is it intent? My answer is, in a very summarized way, because I don't have the DSM-5 with me. Intent, also, one's a personality disorder. The other one is an attachment style, which means a way of relating to people. And another thing to understand is we all have narcissistic traits in us, but how pronounced they are is also something to bear in mind, because if they're like extremely pronounced to the point where you're protecting your fragile ego and your sense of self and you're not taking any accountability, you're being highly narcissistic. Does it really matter at that point if you're someone with narcissistic personality disorder? I'd argue not. Because if you don't have the ability to be self-aware and work on your stuff, you're kind of not helping anyone in that case.
Exactly. Like, yeah, every human being has narcissistic traits. Like, it just is what it is. It's just, what are you using those traits for? Are you using them to manipulate other people, or is it just like you're a normal human being who fucks up sometimes? Like, it just is what it is, right? Like, the intention behind the traits is what matters more than the fact that one has the traits.
And the impact.
Yes, exactly.
Got it.
Well, narcissists are intending to impact the people that they're using those traits on in a negative way. So, yeah. Because if
I
you're a
can,
self-aware person and someone keeps telling you, like, hey, you're doing this and it's hurting me, you're gonna like stop doing that if you've got empathy, right? Whereas a narcissist is gonna be like, oh no, you're too sensitive, or oh yeah, I'll stop doing that, and then they literally just do it again just because they get off on seeing an emotional reaction coming out of you.
completely agree. I got one for you. Why do narcissists act so calm when you are arguing with them?
Oh, because they love it. They love it. That's them like just sitting back eating popcorn while you're giving them supply. Like they're basically their ego is being soothed by you being bamboozled and arguing with them and trying to, help figure this shit out with them. And they also do it to piss you off and to make you even more annoyed and get even more supply from you, get you reacting even more and asking them, like, why are you so calm? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Blah, blah, blah. Because they want to see you in that state where you're reacting.
Yeah. I've noticed that for some people in that cluster B category, they have a tendency to actually be physiologically at peace in a situation, including arguments. So you're essentially giving them dopamine at that point in
Yeah.
time by arguing with them. My huge recommendation would be, do not fuel that fire, especially if they're so, manipulative to the point where they call the police on you and you're the one who's so wound up like a toy off the back of their manipulation and gaslighting and behavior that the police believe, for instance, in this example, you are the crazy one because you're so emotional and hysterical, and they're acting so calm off the back of this.
Mm-hmm.
It can be very confusing for any outsider who's not aware of these dynamics to assume that you must be the wild person in this dynamic, when in fact it's actually not you, it's them that was causing this. So silence is golden in these cases.
Could not agree more. Like, just do not fuel. Like, less is more with narcissists. Like, they want you to argue, they want you to go crazy and lose your fucking shit so that they can point the finger at you and say, oh yeah, see, you're the crazy one. And they'll just be so smug about it, and that's going to piss you off even more because you're a normal person who's having a normal human reaction to the bullshit that this person's putting you through. So you have to really like be aware of that and check yourself as much as you can so that I want to say you don't wreck yourself, but that's really cheesy. But like you don't want to give them that fuel that they're looking for because that's all it's ever going to be about with this person.
Agreed. I think that, it goes back to many of the things you say. Grey rocking is the way to go. Pretend you're a brick wall and just keep at it.
Exactly. Exactly. What would a, yeah, I made a video about this like a month or two ago. The only question you need to ask yourself when you're interacting with a narcissist on what to say back to them, ask yourself, what would a brick wall say? And you're going to have the right answer every single time.
Yep, that's pretty much how it goes. All right, another one I got here is Do you feel like many narcissists are unaware of their destructive behaviors, or would that be more of an avoidant? I'm going to throw the narc question to you. Do you think that narcissists are unaware of their behavior on others?
If they're unaware, they need to be fucking hospitalized. They know exactly what they're doing, okay? Like, it depends on their audience. That takes a great deal of awareness of your surroundings. And, they're one person behind closed doors, they're a completely different person in public, right? Like, they have this great persona that they show to other people. That, like, they know what the fuck they're doing. So, I don't care how dumb they're playing or, how much they're trying to convince you that they really don't know how they're treating you. They know. They're just going to play dumb to continue manipulating you, to continue they want to appeal to your empathy because they choose empathetic people to target. And so they're appealing to your empathy by making you feel sorry for them because they genuinely don't know what they're doing, but they know. They absolutely know. They're not like in this blacked out weird trance state when they're abusing you. They are fully 100% aware of their actions and of their behavior. And their intention every single time is to get a reaction out of you. That's all it's ever going to be about.
Completely agree. I mean, there are definitely, from what I've heard across different psychological journals, there are some that are just completely unaware of what they're doing. But is that an excuse for their behavior? Since when, like, I mean, I understand ignorance and I often excuse that in some cases for very certain situations. But it's like having, this is the example that I often use with my stuff is I say, if you have an STD that you're not aware of, that's one thing. But your job then at that point is to then make sure that you take accountability and responsibility for it so you're not infecting other people. If by that point you know that you have a problem, like an STD, and are continuing to be with people and impact them thus far, you are an abuser.
Yep.
There is no, like, there's no middle ground around that in my books.
Exactly. Exactly. And like narcissists, it's not like they have a disease or what, like they are a disease. They're the disease of the human race. I'm just gonna fucking say it. They are the disease that this planet does not fucking need. Um, but like they want to infect people. It's like they're literally going around wanting to cause harm to other people because they need their broken little ego to feel a little boost from it. And they know. And like the cases of people who are genuinely unaware of their behavior, that's a medical situation that needs to be addressed immediately, that requires hospitalization. That is way above your pay grade as a person dealing with a person who apparently has no fucking clue what they're doing. And so, a narcissist is gonna not even like if you were told, let's say like you were literally just told that you did something, but you had no idea that you did that. Like you would be like on speed dial to your doctor immediately, like to get like a brain scan to figure out what the fuck is wrong with you, right? Whereas a narcissist, they're not going to do that because they don't care, because they know what they're doing, because they want you to suffer, because that's what they enjoy. They enjoy seeing you suffer.
Yep, completely agree. And I think that, when it comes to avoidance, I'd say this is where things are a bit different in that I think a lot of their defensiveness is reactionary, meaning that I think a lot of it is almost like triggered by certain experiences. And because they're so disconnected emotionally, they don't often realize what's actually happening to them in the moment. But I can assure you, after enough times of doing this, they start to realize something. And many of them also do know that they have an issue that they aren't addressing. But do they like having that elephant in the room exposed? No. And this is where the lines of narcissism and avoidant attachment starts to get blurry, because if they're not taking any accountability for the stuff that's going on and also are starting to realize they have a problem and not work on it, they're at the very least very emotionally immature and at worst denying that they are doing something that's really causing harm to people. Betrayal trauma is huge. You don't have to just be a narcissist to be able to do that. Like, being off the back of an experience like this can send people to psychiatric wards where they're experiencing humongous suicidal ideation because of the way that they've been treated. So at the end of the day, I don't think that you can simply just, lament on this being like, oh, well, it's just my defensive mechanisms. It's like, yes, it absolutely is your defensive mechanisms, but that is not an excuse for doing this kind of damage to someone.
Exactly. And like people do take their lives. Like it's when they're narcissistically abused, like it's it's an epidemic. It's, I would say it's probably one of the causes of it, like, because they make you feel so shitty about yourself just to get a little ego boost. And it's horrible. And like they want to continue doing that to you. And so, yeah, like it's just there's no forgiving narcissists.
No. And for the avoidants that do this, I'd say that, they can also, by way of their actions, absolutely do a lot of harm to other people too. Many of them don't want to. Like, they're very genuinely kind-hearted people that don't want to do harm to anyone. And when they recognize what they've done and want to change, I'm like, fan-fucking-tastic. Welcome to the rest of the club that wants to heal. So please get your admission ticket and, be on your merry way. But for a lot of others, they won't. Because for them, they have very strong defense mechanisms of denial. Their ego is huge. They don't want to deal with the idea of actually hurting people. And like, they'll often say things like, oh, well, we don't want to, I never loved that person. Or like, they're just living in delusion. That is so invalidating to people's reaction off the back of this. Like, I got to tell you, like, I mean, sure, there are some people, okay, I was going to bring this example up and I feel like you'd appreciate this one. There is a difference between, actually, no, this is a good one. If you're being scammed online by someone who's claiming to be, some Saudi prince who's an actor in Hollywood, claiming to give you a lot of money, on one hand, okay, sure. First time, I get it if you're not used to this experience and it hurts. But still, on the other hand, too, it's easy to be swept up in this sort of thing, too. Now, for people who are highly emotionally mature, usually narcissistic, usually they genuinely believe a lot of these scams and often do get fooled by them, ironically enough. But for people who are genuinely more emotionally put together, they usually aren't because they can see right through it. But at the end of the day, I'd say in both of these cases, if you're hurt, you're hurt. You have every right to be, validated for that. But how you react afterwards, I think that's a question of how you handle yourself.
Hmm. Totally. Yeah, because a narcissist is gonna like just have a pity party about it for as long as possible just to get supply from people. And yeah,
Yep, it's all about the narc at the end of the day.
exactly.
And then what have we got here? We got, okay, if the person always ends things when you bring them up on poor behavior, does that go beyond avoidant attachment and into narcissism? I would definitely say that it's gliding in that direction. I mean, what do you think of that, Adriana?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Okay. If a person is breaking up with you because you're pointing out their poor behavior in a relationship, does that go beyond just an attachment style?
Oh, yeah.
And is that more of a narcissism
Narc.
thing?
Narc.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would
absolutely.
agree. It's definitely in the realm of narcissism. Whether it's truly NPD or not doesn't fucking matter at that point. I'd say that's not okay.
Exactly.
Like, why would you want your relationship held hostage because someone can't take ownership for their actions?
Exactly. Like that's exactly it. Like this person's a fucking adult and they need to figure their shit out.
And a lot of narcissists do weaponize that against people where they'll say, well, I'm going to break up with you if you're going to behave like this.
Exactly. 100%. Like they basically like dangle the relationship as a carrot and they they want you, it's to get an emotional reaction from you and to get you giving them supply and doing whatever you can to not get broken up with because you think that this is the most important relationship shit of your life when it's really not.
No, but at the time, obviously, it's
Of
very easy to
course.
see it as that,
When you're in the bubble, it's like everything's fucked.
yeah, pretty much, because you feel like your soulmate's ripping everything away from you, and it's a pretty awful experience to go through.
Exactly.
Out of respect
Your
to you,
soulmate wouldn't do that.
no, your soulmate would certainly not do that. Out of respect to you, how much time have you got left?
I can keep going for a bit.
Okay, cool. Let's see. We got another one here, which is I'm so sorry that all my story questions are here because it looks like we've got like over 1 million questions.
Yeah,
in
that's
here,
all I see. Yeah. But I don't see comments. I don't see like who's in here, but I can see like all the question response things to your stories when I click on the question mark. It's so weird. Stupid glitches on Instagram.
well.
Yeah.
Uh, anyways, I've got a question here, which is it common for avoidants to have splitting, warm affection in conversation, then going no contact and thinking you're the problem? Okay, so this is a really good thing to point out because once again, this is definitely in what I call narcissism territory.
That's a narc, yeah.
Yeah. So splitting, well, actually, I was going to say, how would you define splitting?
I've never heard of that term before.
Really?
That's just the cycle of abuse to me, what you described.
Okay.
That's like Love bomb, devalue, discard.
Well, actually, it's not too dissimilar to that. It's so clinically speaking, splitting is when you hold someone in like highest value and praise, being like, "Oh my God, you're my soulmate," and then when you don't like that person for one reason or another, like you're having a bad day with them, they're the scum of the earth. They hate you. They think you're like the worst thing ever.
So love
And
bomb, devalue.
yeah,
Yeah.
the people who have NPD, BPD, and even, believe it or not, anxious attachment and avoidant attachment, it's typically seen with people who are very emotionally dysregulated. So narcissists will absolutely have this. People with BPD usually have this. And people who have like high avoidant attachment where it's also gliding into that narcissistic area, absolutely. They can have splitting. I'm going to do a video on that next week because it's really important. But I was going to say, like, it's very common for narcissists to treat you like you're the king or queen of the world and then drop you in the gutter.
Yep. Yep. That's literally the cycle of abuse.
It's a fun feeling, isn't it?
So fun.
Let's see. Gosh, I'm almost tempted to just go straight to the comments because there's so much stuff here.
Might as well. Like it's a shit show in that question box. I wish I could see the comments, but
I'd invite you
it's
to
all
that
good.
live as well too, because it's actually a reasonably good one to talk about when, you know, you've got friends and family who are invalidating your experience off the back of even a narcissist as well too.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll save that for another
Yeah, for
time.
sure.
Okay, are avoidants likely to not take accountability for their actions, or is that a narc? Well, I'll throw this one to you. Do narcs take accountability for their actions?
No. Unless they think that they can manipulate you by pretending to take accountability for their actions, but usually it's going to be like, well, okay, fine. I did this thing because like you know, they can't deny it anymore, but you also did like, and then they'll tell you like the one bad thing you ever did in your life, like, you know, or they'll like give you like this whole life review. So like if they do take accountability, it's going to be with also throwing something back into your face. And there's always a but with that accountability that a narcissist would take because they're not truly trying to take accountability. They're just trying to manipulate you. And if they do pretend to take accountability, it's only because they need to love bomb you in that moment in order to gain your trust again so that they can rope you back into that cycle of love bomb devalue all over again.
Yep, fully agree. I think that what I've seen with regards to narcissists and their attempts at change is the bottom drops out very quickly. Often they present what I call a fake change, where it's really good in the beginning, but over time you just quickly see they can't maintain it.
Yeah.
As for avoidance, are they likely to take accountability? Not unless they go to therapy. And if they are the unicorn that recognizes what they're doing and takes action on it, give them credit where credit's due. That's amazing. According to one account on Instagram, The Loving Avoidant, I think from reading their story, they said that they were able to recognize what they were doing and change. But I don't want everyone to hold out for the unicorn cases because they are far and few between. So just putting that out there with a bit of realism. But I respect waiting out. Like, I mean, if you've been presented with someone who acts like a soulmate and feels like a soulmate, I get it. Just want to put it out there and share a bit of empathy in that case. Okay, we got one here. I have even considered separation from my husband because he just can't say keep off for the fear of not upsetting her.
What?
I'm going to rephrase that one. I think this one is saying, I have considered separating from my partner because... Oh, I see what's happening. I think this person... Sorry, there's building work going on behind me. I hope that no one's hearing this. Basically, this person is saying, I've considered separating from my partner because every time I go to sit down on the couch, they just keep saying, just get off the couch. I mean, to me, when I hear that, I just sort of think, okay, I'm not sure of the full dynamics of that situation, but I mean, that's a very emotionally immature response of your partner to be constantly like berating you about like getting on that couch.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a little confused by the scenario, to be honest, but like, yeah, if they are berating you for just sitting down and like, are they like trying to imply that you're lazy or like whatever it is, that could be a form of the devalue in a narcissistic dynamic.
Fully agreed. Okay, I've got a question that's actually very relevant to what you're taking care of. So a narcissist more, sorry, so are narcissists more sadistic?
Yeah, pretty much.
I would agree.
Yeah,
I think that in a lot of those cases, they definitely do. A lot of them do get their jollies off seeing people in pain.
yeah, they love it.
Let's see what else we got here. When an avoidant says they love you but don't want the obligation, what does that mean? Okay, obligation for them is feeling guilty that they're not going to live up to you what they think you're looking for. They in their head are thinking, this person's going to expect me to love them unconditionally, to be available for them, to have kids with them, and I just can't do that. So it's that perceived weight of feeling like they can't meet your needs. That's what it means for them. It's not a case of like they think you're too much, but they can act like they feel too much. Oh, here's one for you. Does a narcissist get worse as they get older?
Oh God, yeah. Oh fuck yeah. They get worse. Like my narcissistic mother died 3 years ago. Like she just got worse and worse and worse. And she even on her deathbed, like she brought all of her bullshit with her. She gave me the death glare on her deathbed when she was at the point of like not being able to even speak anymore. So yeah, they do not get any better. They only get worse. All of my clients as well who have narcissistic parents, like they just get worse with age. Like they don't do what normal people do, where they start reflecting on their older age and start, making the most of life or, trying to right their wrongs. Like they get more set in their ways and just more angry and fucked.
Yep, that's what I've been told too. Like, if anything, they usually go to the grave more bitter,
Oh
resentful,
yeah.
delusional. I've even heard accounts of some narcissistic mothers like looking over the shoulder of their kids, being like, "Oh, that cute guy looked at me," and they're like literally decrepit, old, and honestly believe that some random guy in the streets would actually be interested in them romantically.
Hmm. Yep. Sounds about narc.
Yep, it's a pretty sad state for a lot of these people,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, like I said before, it's a relief to get away from them.
Yeah. Once you realize like how delusional they are and how like out of touch with reality and just insane they are, it's just like, get the fuck away from me.
Yep. We got another one here, which is: do avoidants use forms of triangulation in order to distance and discard you? No, that is not an avoidant attacher related thing. If anything, that is absolutely in the realm of a narcissist.
Yeah. Totally a narc thing.
I can't even imagine. Avoidance, actually, okay, to describe an avoidant parent, because this would be where you'd see a lot of triangulation, they're the ones who often leave a relationship. So, in other words, you've had, actually, I think you would have seen this in a lot of like narcissistic pairings, Adriana, with like parents. The avoidant parent would be the one who abandons the family because it's too hard for them to deal with it. And so they're the one who just like gets up and leaves very quickly without warning. And it's not because they've realized what a narcissistic partner that they've actually got in their life. It's almost because it's almost like the path of least resistance. It's almost like, oh, I don't actually want to deal with the emotional stuff in this, so I'm going to choose to just leave quietly in the background without telling anyone.
Yeah. I can't think of any specific cases of that because it's usually like the majority of what I've seen is like an overt narcissistic parent and then they think the other parent's an enabler, but they're actually covert.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that dynamic too, for sure. I was thinking more of like, say, for example, if you've got like a really passive parent who puts up, so very much like the enabler who puts up with a lot of the bullshit. Like, say, for example, if the kids are getting shouted at, they're like the enabling parent is like banging pots and pans to not deal with the emotional distress that
Mm.
they're hearing from their kids. And then they choose, like later on, to leave because they don't want to deal with it anymore. And so, and they often have a very loose to no contact with their children. So, I mean, on one hand, it can truly be survivors of narcissistic abuse, absolutely. But often, too, a lot of these avoidantly traded parents are also just, you know, unfortunately, not able to maintain the role of being a guardian to their kids. So you can
Sounds
have
like
a
my
split.
situation. Yeah. Sounds like my dad could have been an avoidant. I don't know. I'm
It happens.
gonna
Well,
ponder. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter anymore, but
I was going to
yeah, that
say,
could be
like,
it.
it's a conversation for another day,
Yeah, that's
probably.
another day. Yeah. But yeah, I think in my case that may have been because like my mother drove everyone insane and he had custody of me, but he would have had to get the police involved to see me. So he was like, instead of traumatizing me more, he just kind of like backed off. So is that an
And
avoidant thing? I don't know.
well, I'm assuming you didn't go to therapy for it.
No, no.
I would say without diagnose, like, I mean, I can't diagnose,
Yeah.
but I'd say what I've noticed was, like, in my experience with the passive parent, sometimes what they'll do is they'll leave and they've never been to therapy or anything like that before. They just, because they're so, like, detached from the situation emotionally, they're just like, no, I'm out. And they may just date someone almost immediately off the back of that within, like, a couple of weeks or months
Hmm.
to try and distance themselves from it. So that's usually what I've seen for
Yeah.
those kind of.
Yeah, that actually sounds like my situation.
Well,
Interesting. Yeah. Because I was wondering if he might be a narc too, because whatever. But no, that avoidant might make more sense because I don't know him that well anyway. So it's just like it's weird.
I think one of the things that characterizes avoidant parents is that you always feel like there's a lot of distance between you and them, meaning like they're nice, but you never feel that emotionally close with them at
Yeah.
all. So it's almost like they have this like extreme passivity. By the way, I just want to say to everyone, I'm so sorry. My building has been going through so much like works in the background. I hope it's not disturbing anyone because it's been like driving me insane over the last like few sessions I've had with clients.
Well, that's annoying. Yeah.
I might actually, because I was going to say, it's going to be the point now where I can't even hear myself think. I might have to do 2 more questions and then we'll just round it out.
Sounds good. Yeah.
I promise that next time I do a live, there won't be building works going on at the same time. But
You can't
anyways,
control it.
no.
It's not up to you when they do work on the building.
I was actually going to say at one point, I was like thinking to myself, could you imagine like a narcissist in this situation? I could easily imagine them like storming out, raging at the poor people out there,
Yeah.
and just to like control the noise.
Yep.
Because I definitely had the thought running in my head. I was like, if I was someone who was more inclined that way, I could totally see myself doing it.
Hmm. But no, you're doing a great job of gray rocking the noises.
It's
I like that because it's like every 5 seconds. Like, wow, it must be really loud there.
actually, I think that you know what? I think from what I can see here, I can't see any more questions that are worth answering for the time being. Look, everyone I know is questions and stuff here, but out of respect to my ears at the moment,
Yes.
I'm just gonna like I'm probably gonna early wrap this up.
Yeah,
I'm
let's wrap
sorry,
this
guys.
up.
It's just getting a bit hard for me on my end. Just to round out, was there anything else you wanted to add about what you're offering and what you're doing at the moment, Adriana?
Yeah, sure. So if you want to work with me, I've got a bunch of options. So you can join my super affordable community for less than $1 per day. I do live events each month in there. But if you are looking for something a lot more advanced, rather, I did open up rather early bird um, spots. I'm like, what's the word? Early bird spots to the next round of my 12-week group coaching program called Bulletproof. It's the ultimate blueprint to becoming bulletproof after narcissistic abuse. It's a 12-week small group program, 10 people or less per group. And this might be the last round that I have for 2023. I'm probably not going to do another round until 2024 or maybe December, depends how things go. Depends how much time I have, really. But if you're interested in that, just head over to the link in my bio and you can apply for it. You can learn more about it and then fill out the application form. And then you'll be able to book a no obligation consultation call with me. And if it's a great fit, we'll get you signed up. If not, I'll let you know what else would be more suitable for you. Or you can do one-on-one sessions as well, but I'm probably phasing those out soon because it's the group is really where it's at. There's so much more healing that happens. So feel free to find me here on Instagram at Let's Get Your Shift Together. And all of what I just talked about is at the link in my bio.
And before I talk about anything that I'll talk about what I'm offering and then I'll throw one last question your way because I saw a great one for you. I am currently booked out with my one-on-one sessions for the time being until like early January 2024. And I'm trying to similarly phase those out over time. I may keep like about 8 a week just because I want to prioritize other activities that I want to do. So what I'm looking at creating, which I've talked about consistently, is having a community where I'll, invite people like yourself as part of this community where I can offer educational lives, Q&A, and workshops for people because your boy wants to do other things outside of just counseling. He loves it, but he wants to do other things. And I mean, I know you've talked about group coaching before as well as a suggestion. I'm seriously thinking about that too because people seem to suggest that they were looking for something like that as well too. I've just got to, it's really very much a case of your boy wants to liberate time to do other things and also focus other areas that actually make sense without having more work, burnout, and a lot of recovery as a consequence.
Hmm. Totally. Group coaching's where it's at.
You know what I was going to say, because you and I have both gone through that experience
Yeah.
before.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. I burnt out last year. It was not a good time. And then I got COVID after and had long COVID for a year. So that was a whole shit show.
It's not worth it.
No.
Just lastly, this is a great one that I thought I'd throw your way. One commenter has asked, how do you deal with coming from a family of a narcissistic parent? For example, if you're talking to a potential partner on a date about, being from a family of narcissists, how do you address it given the shame that you might have around the topic?
So if you're just starting to date someone, like you don't need to be talking about that kind of stuff, like especially in the early stages. Because if it's like literally like you're still in the dating phase, like you don't need to really get that deep with that kind of stuff. If they ask, of course, you can just sort of briefly mention it. You don't have to go into full detail. Don't feel like you need to over explain yourself or anything like that because you've been trained to do that, right? Like that's a form of supply for a narcissist. They train you to over explain things and give supply, giving them more words. So if you're dating a normal person, you can just say like, yeah, my family's just kind of, there's a few narcissists in my family. We don't really get along. I'm kind of like taking some distance from them for my mental health. And if they if they react in a way where you are feeling shame about yourself, that is a fucking red flag that you need to run. All right. If they are understanding and they're like, oh, okay, cool. Like, are you okay to talk about it? Or, we can talk about this more like in the future when you're ready to talk about it. I respect your decision to take a breather or whatever. Like, not every family is the fucking Brady Bunch type of situation. Like if they've got that sort of reaction to it, then that's great. And that's a sign that, continue going on dates with this person. But if they trigger any shame within you for your situation that think about it. Like you had, I'm like on my soapbox here. I'm sorry, but if you
Go.
you had a narcissistic upbringing, you had absolutely no fucking control over like who your family is. Okay, there is no psychological test that a parent has to go through in order to have a child. Like any idiot can have a child and fuck that child up and like try to ruin their life. And that was absolutely not your fault whatsoever. So if the person you're dating can't fucking comprehend that, that's a gigantic red flag. All right. There's so much shit in society where it's like, oh, if this person's not close with their family, what does that say about them? No, those people can go fuck themselves. Okay. Like, people are such hypocrites, and you don't want to be wasting your time dating somebody who is a hypocrite like that. So, if anything, look at it like a test for this person that you're dating. Because remember, you are a catch. You are the fucking prize. Okay. It's not all about how that person's going to react. It's about how you feel with this person too. And so if you are holding on to shame as well of being raised in a narcissistic family and all that kind of stuff, that's definitely a sign that you could do some healing. Baby steps one day at a time. Start with journaling. Journal out all the stuff that you feel shame about. Literally pen, paper, 20-minute timer. Destroy that paper at the end. I call this rage journaling. Other people call it different things. But basically doing that on a regular basis, on a daily basis, like I'm literally giving away coaching here. That is something that's going to be super helpful for you. And then that can help you to sort of gain the courage to, talk about it a bit more candidly with the person you're dating. But again, look at it this way, it's none of anybody's fucking business, right? Unless like the relationship's getting super serious and you're really getting to know each other on like that much deeper level, then cool. But like if it's like the first couple of dates, like you can keep it very very basic at first, see how they react to that. If it's not a good reaction, that says more about them than it does about what you have been through, because you had no control over that. So I hope that all made sense, but I'm obviously very passionate about this.
I loved everything that you had to say.
Thank you.
I will add my final 2 cents to this now that finally the noise is gone,
Yeah.
so I can actually hear my. Yeah, I agree with everything you've said. I will say, on one hand, as someone who knows what it's like to come from a family where the dynamics are not always healthy and, you may be having ruptures or you're just not getting along with family, I get it. Firstly, as Adriana said, you don't need to let that other person know the full history of that. I think you can just say in a boundary way, listen, I'm just going through, like, I don't really feel comfortable talking about my relational situation with my family. I prefer to keep that off topic for the time being. It's just very difficult for me. If that person doesn't appreciate that, that says a lot more about them than it does about you.
Red flag.
100% red flag. Secondly, I would say if you have come from a family where you've gone no contact with them too, you can simply just summarize if you feel comfortable around it. There's no shame. You can be like, listen, I've had to go no contact with my family because I could see that it was just becoming really unhealthy, and I've chosen this, and this is what's best for me. I got to be honest, if someone has a bad reaction to that and is like, oh, but they're your family, like, I'm sorry. That again speaks a lot to them. Now, understandably, some healthy and secure people might have a, bit of confusion around that if they've come from the Brady Bunch kind of family, because, hey, some of those do exist, and it's, it happens. But if they're shaming or judging you, I gotta say that's a real mark against them, and not something that's an invitation to continue potentially dating with them. Because why should you be having to bring this person onto the table to be like, listen, some people didn't grow up having, the Mary Poppins life. Well, actually, that's probably more of a narcissistic household, so sorry. Bad example. Not many of us did grow up with the Mary Poppins family dynamic, and many of us did not get the Brady Bunch. So please don't invalidate my experience. That's one thing. Now, I want to throw this for a bit of context and nuance if you're on the receiving end of someone who's saying this. If someone is going to town, trauma dumping their narcissistic family experience, that is not, that's not a good sign. That is someone who probably hasn't healed a lot of that sort of stuff. That is someone who also likely, doesn't actually take a lot of accountability for that situation. Of course, I'm sorry that person's gone through a narcissistic dynamic, but there's a difference between someone who's taking radical accountability of it and someone who's acting as a victim about the situation. So please understand there are nuances to this sort of thing too. If that person also says, oh, this is something that a lot of avoidant attachers have, so please be very aware of this. A lot of them have come from narcissistic families, and if they say, if it's a guy, for instance, and they say, I have a close relationship with my mum, I don't want to call it out and say that's a huge red flag, but it may become something that is definitely a red flag, because a lot of avoidant attachers are often sometimes the golden child, the groomed boy or girl in those family household dynamics.
The mama's boy.
And often they do have a very tight relationship with their narcissistic parent. So please be very mindful that individual children of narcissistic families will talk about their family dynamics very differently in dating. Hell, some of them may even gloss it up and say, we have the most amazing family, we never have fights, because they're minimizing the shit that's actually happened to them.
100%. Always run if there's a mama's boy. Just don't. No. GTFO. Because they're the golden child, right? Because narcissistic mothers, they pin their children against each other, and if they have a boy and a girl, the girl's the scapegoat usually, and then the boy is the mama's boy, the golden child, the spoiled one, and they have very, very different experiences of their parents.
Could not agree more. So with that lovely question answered, I nearly knocked my table over. I'm going to wrap this live up. Thank you very much, Adriana, for also bearing with me as I was going through construction work.
It's all good. It's not your fault.
I thought I could possibly move into a different room, but I thought, fuck it, they won't start again. They did. Oh, well.
It happens.
So, live. Anyways, before they start up again, thank you everyone for joining us live. It was phenomenal seeing everyone. I'll be back on doing another live next week. But until then, Adriana, thank you very much as always, and I can't wait to see you again for a future live.
Of course, we'll do one soon. Thanks so much for having me, and thank you whoever's here for being here. I'm sorry I can't see anyone, but thank you for being here. Bye, everyone.
See you guys.